Bright corridors were now dull and crumbling, with wires hanging like broken vines and the faint smell of burned circuits in the air. Her eyes, large and glowing with soft violet light, scanned every corner. She was alone, or at least she thought she was. Every sound made her flinch. Every shadow seemed like it might be something alive. She had been hiding for days, nursing wounds that burned hotter than any fire she had ever felt on her home planet. The pain was constant, a gnawing ache in her chest and a sharp sting in her side where a human blaster had grazed her. Lyra's kind were not meant to be fragile. They were strong, quick, and resilient. Yet here she was, trembling as she tried to drag herself along the cold metal floor, wishing she could disappear entirely. The humans had chased her with a precision and cruelty she had never imagined. They did not understand her kind, and she did not trust them. Not a single human had ever earned her respect. Not until now, at least, she hoped. She sank into a corner, pressing her back against the wall. Her thoughts were chaotic, fragmented like broken stars scattered across the universe. Why had she come here? Why had she trusted anyone? Lyra had always been independent, relying only on herself. But after the attack on her shuttle, after losing her crew and seeing everything she knew fall into dust, she had no choice but to flee. Pain was her constant companion, and loneliness had wrapped around her like a heavy cloak. She didn't even know if she would survive the night. Her breathing was shallow. Every movement sent jolts of agony through her body, and she fought to stay conscious. The last thing she remembered before collapsing in the hallway was the flickering of lights above her and the faint echo of footsteps in the distance. She thought she would die alone. She thought the universe had forgotten her. Then, through the haze of pain and despair, she heard it, a sound so strange and foreign that it made her ears twist. A voice, a human voice, not shouting, not commanding, not attacking. Just a soft, careful murmur, almost like it was searching for her. Lyra froze, every muscle tensed. Her instincts screamed to flee, to hide deeper, to remain unseen. Yet something about that voice stopped her. It carried no threat, no malice, just concern. She had never heard humans sound like this. Curiosity mixed with caution, hesitation. She wanted to believe it, but trust did not come easily. Not after everything she had endured. The footsteps grew closer, slow and deliberate. Lyra's heart pounded in her chest. She considered running, but her body refused. She was too weak, too wounded. Instead, she watched from her hiding place as a human appeared at the edge of the corridor. He was young, with messy hair and eyes that didn't hold judgment, only a careful observation. His hands were raised slightly, empty. He looked different from the ones who had attacked her before. "Hey," he said softly, stepping closer. "I won't hurt you, I want to help." Lyra's skin prickled. She had heard words like these before, but they were always lies, always a trick. Her chest ached, not just from her injuries, but from the hopelessness of it all. Could she risk it? Could she allow herself to be seen? The human crouched down, keeping his distance, yet close enough that she could hear his breathing. "You're hurt," he said. "You can't stay here alone. Come with me, I'll keep you safe." Her instincts screamed at her to refuse, to vanish into the shadows. But another part of her, a part she had long buried beneath pride and pain, felt something stir. Something like hope. Lyra blinked slowly, her glowing eyes locked onto his. She could see the sincerity in him, the quiet strength he radiated. It was unlike anything she had expected from a human. And for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, she felt safe. Not completely safe, not yet, but safe enough to consider stepping out of the shadows, safe enough to wonder if perhaps, just perhaps, she could trust him. And so, trembling and still wary, Lyra shifted slightly, testing her strength. The human waited patiently, his gaze gentle, giving her the time she needed. It was a small gesture, but it meant more than words could say. For the first time since the attack, she didn't feel entirely alone. She still hurt. She still feared. But somewhere in the quiet glow of the ruined station, amidst the pain and darkness, a fragile thread of trust began to form. Lyra did not know if it would survive. But she felt it. The human's name was Elias, and Lyra learned it slowly through broken words and careful gestures. He offered her a small, portable medkit he had scavenged from the station's abandoned infirmary. Lyra hesitated, her hands shaking as she reached for it. Pain lanced through her side again, sharp enough to make her hiss quietly, but she forced herself to take it. Elias did not flinch. He simply waited, his eyes calm, patient. I can help," he said again, his voice soft but firm. "Let me do this." You don't have to do it alone. Lyra's pride twisted in her chest. She was a warrior, trained to handle pain, trained to survive on her own. Yet she had never felt so weak. Never had she wanted help this badly. Her kind taught them to hide vulnerabilities, to mask injuries, to fight without aid. But her body, trembling and sore, demanded something she had long refused to give herself: trust. With trembling fingers, she allowed him to clean the wound. The sting was unbearable at first, and she gritted her teeth, trying not to cry out. Elias murmured apologies, not because he had done anything wrong, but because he understood the agony. His hands were steady, gentle, and oddly comforting. Lyra studied him carefully, noticing the way he worked methodically, without hesitation, without judgment. He didn't flinch when her skin flared with pain, didn't step back when she flinched instinctively. "You're stronger than you look," he said, trying to lighten the tension, though his voice held no mockery. It was a simple observation, but it struck her strangely. Lyra said nothing. Words were heavy. Trust was heavier, but she didn't move away either. After he had cleaned and bandaged the wound, Elias offered her water. Lyra drank cautiously, her throat dry and raw from days without proper nourishment. He waited silently, his presence quiet but solid, like a rock in the midst of chaos. For the first time since her attack, Lyra allowed herself to breathe. "You don't have to speak if you don't want to," he said softly. I want you to survive." Those words struck deeper than she expected. Humans were unpredictable, violent, loud, and cruel. Most of them had hunted her relentlessly. Yet here was one standing calm, patient, offering nothing but care. Lyra had never believed a human could be this kind. She wanted to scoff, to push him away, to disappear back into the shadows where no one could touch her. But she didn't. Not yet. Hours passed. Lyra rested, leaning against the cold metal wall as Elias remained nearby, keeping watch. Occasionally, she caught glimpses of his eyes scanning the corridors for threats. She noticed how careful he was, not just for his own safety, but for hers. It was small, almost imperceptible, but it mattered. Finally, Lyra spoke. Her voice was barely more than a whisper, strained and foreign to her own ears. "Why, help me." Elias smiled faintly, a tired, honest smile. "Because someone did the same for me once," he said simply. "Because it's the right thing to do," Lyra blinked. The words were simple, but they carried weight. His kindness was not a trick. It was not an act of weakness. It was deliberate, genuine. She had spent so long hiding from humans, fearing them, hating them even, that the notion that one might care for her seemed almost impossible. And yet she felt it, that fragile warmth of trust, beginning to bloom in the darkness of her fear. As night fell over the station, the artificial lights flickering above them, Lyra allowed herself to relax slightly. She leaned against the wall more fully, closing her eyes for the first time in days. Pain still throbbed, sharp and constant, but it was no longer unbearable. Elias's presence softened it, not by magic but by assurance. By the knowledge that someone, at least one someone, was on her side. Hours stretched into silence. The distant hum of the station's dying systems filled the gaps between their breaths. Lyra studied him without speaking, watching his every movement, noticing the care in how he adjusted his position to avoid causing her discomfort, the careful way he monitored the hallway for danger. She didn't fully understand it yet, but she felt something she had never felt around humans: safety. Finally, she spoke again, her words slower, careful. I don't know if I can trust anyone, ever, but I think I can trust you." Elias nodded, his expression soft but steady. "You can, and you will. I'll make sure of it." Lyra allowed herself a small sigh, a release of tension she hadn't realized she had been holding. The pain in her body had not disappeared, but the ache in her chest, the ache of loneliness, of betrayal, of fear, felt lighter. For the first time in days, maybe weeks, she felt a flicker of hope. Hope was dangerous, she knew. Hope could be shattered as easily as glass. But she also knew that without it she would not survive. And with Elias's presence, with his calm and patient care, she felt that maybe, just maybe, there was a chance she could live. And maybe, one day, even trust again. The next morning, the station felt different. The flickering lights above seemed less menacing, and even the distant hum of machinery was almost comforting. Lyra stirred, her body stiff but her mind more alert. Pain still lingered, especially in her side, but it no longer ruled her every thought. She watched Elias quietly. noting the way he moved, the careful way he handled the supplies he had gathered overnight. "You should eat," Elias said softly, noticing her gaze. "It'll help your strength. We need it if we're going to leave this place safely." Lyra hesitated. Food had never tasted so foreign since her arrival on this station. She had survived on scraps and rationed supplies, yet now the thought of eating stirred a strange feeling. Trust. She reached for the small pack of nutrient paste he offered. The taste was bland, but she ate anyway, letting the warmth spread through her body. After she had finished, Elias looked out toward the corridor that led to the main station hub. "We need to move soon. The patrol drones will be back. They scan these sectors regularly. Staying here too long is risky." Lyra's violet eyes narrowed. "Patrol drones?" she asked, voice cautious. "Humans," Elias explained, not harshly, but with calm clarity. "They're looking for survivors. Anyone out here alone is considered a threat. They don't understand your kind. They'll attack if they find you." Lyra's chest tightened. Fear crept in like an old friend. She had expected this. She had lived it. And yet she realized something she had never expected. She didn't want to run alone this time. "Not with him." Elias watched her closely. "I know it's not easy to trust, especially with your kind. But if we stick together, we stand a chance." Lyra bit her lip, torn between instinct and hope. Her instinct screamed at her to hide, to flee, to rely only on herself. And yet, looking at Elias, she saw not weakness but quiet strength. There was something in the human's gaze that told her he would not abandon her. That even if the world turned against her, he would stand by her side. They prepared to move. Lyra's body protested every step. Pain flared through her side and legs, but Elias supported her, guiding her gently through the station's maze-like corridors. Shadows seemed to shift around them, the remnants of abandoned systems and fallen humans creating a haunting maze. Every corner brought anxiety. Every distant sound set her nerves on edge. Yet, with Elias by her side, the fear felt manageable. Suddenly, a loud clank echoed through the hall. Lyra froze, heart hammering. Patrol drones. They came faster than she anticipated. Elias immediately gestured for her to hide behind a collapsed wall panel. His movements were careful, deliberate, and precise, every step calculated to minimize risk. "Stay still," he whispered. "Don't make a sound." Lyra's skin prickled, every instinct screaming to flee, to fight, to vanish. But she obeyed. She could feel Elias's steadying presence beside her, his hand lightly brushing against her arm, not touching too much but reassuring enough. The drones passed by, their scanners sweeping over the corridor just a few meters away. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. Every second felt like an eternity. Finally, the sound faded. The drones moved on. Lyra exhaled slowly, allowing herself a trembling smile. Elias looked at her, his expression soft. "See? We can do this," he said, his voice gentle, calm, confident. She nodded, still shaking, still wary, but the thread of trust between them grew stronger. She realized something crucial. Strength was not always about fighting alone. Sometimes it was about allowing someone to help, allowing connection even when it was terrifying. As they continued through the station, Elias talked quietly, asking her questions about her home, her species, and her journey. Lyra answered hesitantly at first, then with more openness. She had never shared her story with anyone outside her kind. Sharing it now felt like stepping into sunlight after a lifetime of darkness. Hours later, they reached the central hub of the station. Lyra paused at the entrance, seeing the vast expanse of the room. It was filled with wreckage, but also possibilities. She could hide, run, or attempt to repair a shuttle that might still function. Her mind raced with options. Elias watched her carefully. "Whatever you choose, I'll be here," he said simply. "You don't have to face it alone." Lyra's chest tightened, not from pain this time, but from something deeper, something she could not name. Trust. Safety. Maybe even hope. For the first time since the attack, she felt a spark of something she thought she had lost forever. But deep inside, she knew danger was not over. The patrol drones, the humans who hunted her, the uncertainty of the station, all of it still loomed ahead. And yet, with Elias, maybe she didn't have to face it alone. Lyra took a deep breath, her hand brushing against the wall as she steadied herself. Pain still lingered, fear still lingered, but a new feeling had taken root. And it was stronger than any wound, any shadow, or any human who had ever hunted her. It was trust. And for Lyra, it was everything. The central hub of the station was a vast, echoing space littered with broken consoles, flickering monitors, and scattered debris. Lyra's violet eyes scanned the area carefully, every nerve on edge. She could sense the presence of humans nearby, the faint vibrations of their movements reverberating through the floor. Her body ached with every step, but the determination in her chest, fueled by Elias's presence, pushed her forward. "We should check the shuttle bay," Elias said quietly, pointing toward a long corridor that led to the docking area. "If a shuttle is still functional, we can leave before more patrols arrive." Lyra nodded, her pride struggling against her need for survival. Pride had always been her armor, her defense against betrayal and pain. Yet with Elias, she realized pride alone would not save her. She needed him. She needed someone she could trust to navigate the dangers she could no longer face alone. As they moved, Lyra kept close to the walls, her glowing eyes darting from shadow to shadow. Elias mirrored her movements, careful not to make sudden noises. Every step was tense, measured, as if the very walls of the station could betray them. Suddenly, a harsh mechanical sound cut through the silence. The patrol drones had returned, faster and more numerous than before. Lyra froze, every instinct screaming at her to run, to hide, to fight. Elias immediately grabbed her arm gently but firmly. "Stay calm," he whispered. "We stick together." Lyra's heart hammered, her chest tight with fear. The drone's scanners glowed red as they swept over the corridor, searching for movement. She could feel the sweat on her skin, the pain in her side flaring as she tried to remain motionless. She wanted to pull away, to escape on her own, but Elias's steady presence kept her grounded. One drone scanner paused on her shadow, sending a jolt of panic through her. Lyra tensed, ready to bolt, ready to fight, ready to risk everything to survive. But Elias placed a hand lightly on her shoulder. "Trust me," he said. "Just a little longer." Lyra closed her eyes, forcing herself to breathe. She counted in her mind, slow, steady. The scanner passed, another and another. Each second stretched, heavy and suffocating. But Elias never wavered. His calmness became her anchor, a lifeline in the storm of fear. When the drones finally moved on, Lyra exhaled, her body trembling from the tension. I don't know how you stayed so calm," she whispered. Elias shook his head. "Experience. But mostly, I care. And caring sometimes means standing still when everything else screams to run." Lyra's chest tightened. Caring. She had never had anyone care for her like this. The humans who had attacked her before had only sought to kill or capture. And now here was Elias risking his own safety for her, showing patience, understanding, and protection. She felt something she had not allowed herself to feel for a long time. Hope. They reached the shuttle bay, and Lyra's heart sank slightly. The shuttles were old, many stripped for parts or destroyed. But one remained, small and battered, yet seemingly functional. Elias approached it cautiously, checking the systems with quick, practiced movements. Lyra wanted to help, to do something, but her injuries slowed her. She stood back, watching him work, feeling both useless and grateful at the same time. Her pride bristled at needing help, yet she could not deny the relief washing over her. Suddenly, a loud alarm blared, echoing through the station. Patrol drones had detected movement in another sector and were converging toward the bay. Lyra's heart raced. She wanted to run, but Elias grabbed her hand. "We can make it," he said firmly. "We just need to move together." Pain lanced through her side as she struggled to keep up, but she followed, trusting him completely. For the first time, Lyra realized that trust was not weakness. It was strength. Strength she could not summon alone. They ran through the bay, the hum of drones growing louder behind them. Lyra stumbled, her wounds screaming in protest, but Elias caught her, steadying her with a reassuring grip. "Almost there," he said. "Just a little further." Finally, they reached the shuttle. Elias helped her inside, closing the door behind them. The small cabin felt cramped but safe. Lyra sank into the seat, her body shaking from exhaustion, pain, and adrenaline. Elias strapped himself in beside her, giving her a small, encouraging smile. "You made it," he said quietly. "We're going to be okay." Lyra nodded, tears welling in her eyes. She had survived pain, betrayal, and fear. She had run from humans who sought to destroy her. And yet, in the chaos, in the darkness, she had found something she never expected. Someone she could trust. And for the first time since the attack, Lyra allowed herself to hope that trust might not be fleeting. that someone, a human, could be her ally, her protector, her friend, as the shuttle engines hummed to life. Lifting them away from the station, Lyra pressed her hand lightly against her side, feeling the ache still there but softened by something stronger, a fragile, burning flame of trust and hope. And for the first time, she believed she could survive not alone, but together. The shuttle cut through the dark expanse of space, the stars streaking past like scattered diamonds. Lyra pressed her hand against the hull, feeling the vibrations of the engines beneath her fingers. She had survived the station, the drones, the pain, but the relief was fragile. She knew that safety was temporary. Danger could follow them anywhere. Elias adjusted the controls, his face tense but determined. "We're not out of danger yet," he said, glancing at her briefly. "There's a human patrol sector ahead. We need to navigate carefully or they'll intercept us." Lyra's heart tightened. She understood the stakes, yet she also understood something deeper. She had been running for so long, hiding, fearing, trusting no one, that she almost forgot what it felt like to rely on someone else. But now, as she watched Elias work with calm precision, she realized she could trust him. Not blindly, perhaps, but enough to follow, enough to survive. Her side ached with every small jolt of the shuttle, her breathing shallow. Elias noticed, offering a small, encouraging smile. "I've got you," he said softly. "Lean on me if you need to." Lyra's pride flared for a moment, but then she let it go. She allowed herself to lean slightly against him, feeling a strange comfort in the connection. For years she had believed she could only depend on herself, and now, for the first time, she understood that trust could be a strength. Suddenly, a warning light flashed red on the shuttle console. Sensors had detected movement, a patrol fleet closing in. Lyra's stomach dropped, a wave of fear hitting her chest. Elias's hands moved quickly across the controls. "They're trying to box us in," he said. "We'll have to maneuver through the asteroid field up ahead." "It's risky, but it's our only chance," Lyra swallowed hard. Her species had incredible reflexes, and she could have taken over the controls, but she hesitated. Her injuries made her weak, and she did not trust herself alone. She glanced at Elias. His determination, his focus, the calm way he reassured her, it made her heart steady. She nodded. "I trust you," she said quietly, almost as if saying it aloud made it real. Elias's lips twitched in a brief smile, gratitude and relief in his eyes. "Good, then we do this together." The shuttle entered the asteroid field. Rocks of all sizes floated around them, lit by distant starlight. The patrol ships closed in, their searchlights cutting through the darkness. Lyra felt fear clawing at her chest, but Elias's presence beside her anchored her. He guided the shuttle with skill and care, narrowly avoiding collisions, adjusting speed and angle with precision. Lyra's hands gripped the edge of her seat. Every near miss sent jolts of pain through her side, but she stayed silent, trusting Elias to navigate. She realized how strange it felt, not to lead, not to fight alone, but to rely on someone else. And yet the relief was overwhelming. She didn't feel helpless, she felt connected. A sudden alarm blared. A patrol ship had spotted them. Lyra's pulse raced. Elias adjusted the shuttle's trajectory, narrowly dodging incoming fire. The cabin rattled, but he never lost focus. "Hold on," he shouted, and the shuttle twisted sharply through a narrow gap between two massive asteroids. Lyra's breath caught. She felt terror, but also exhilaration. Her body was weak, but her mind was alive with trust. She knew Elias would not let them fall. She allowed herself to lean slightly into him again, silently acknowledging that she needed him. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they cleared the patrol ships. The asteroid field opened into the emptiness of open space. Silence filled the cabin. Lyra exhaled, tears pricking at her eyes. She had survived. They had survived. Together. Elias looked at her, his expression soft but serious. "You did great," he said. "You stayed calm when it mattered most." Lyra shook her head, a small smile forming. "No," she said, voice trembling slightly. "You did, you saved me." Elias reached out briefly, placing a hand over hers. "We saved each other," he said quietly. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, Lyra felt a sense of peace. The pain in her body had not disappeared, but the fear that had dominated her life, the fear of betrayal, of being hunted, of being alone, had softened. She realized that trust was not easy, that it was fragile and dangerous, but it was worth everything. In the quiet of the shuttle, hurt and exhausted but alive, Lyra understood something she had long forgotten. Survival was not just about strength or speed. Sometimes it was about connection, about allowing someone to care for you, about taking a leap of faith in the darkest moment. And in that leap, she had found something stronger than fear, stronger than pain. She had found trust, and maybe in time she could even find hope. The shuttle floated in silence for a brief moment, the stars stretching endlessly outside the viewport. Lyra rested against the wall, her body sore, her side still burning with the aftershocks of pain. She had survived drones, asteroid fields, and exhaustion, but her mind was heavy. Trust was still fragile. She had leaned on Elias before, but now she wondered, could she really believe that anyone, especially a human, would truly protect her? Elias adjusted the controls, eyes scanning the radar. "We've got a long way to go before we're out of the patrol zones," he said quietly. His voice was calm, but there was a tension under it, an unspoken worry that mirrored her own. Lyra looked at him, her violet eyes reflecting the faint glow of the control panels. "And if they catch us?" she asked, her voice soft, almost a whisper. "If they find us, will you still fight for me?" Elias turned to her, his expression firm and unwavering. "I won't let them," he said. "No matter what." Her chest tightened. She had heard words like these before, from humans who promised safety and then delivered pain. But something about the way he said it, calm, steady, unyielding, struck a chord deep inside her. Perhaps it was the way his eyes held hers, not with judgment or fear, but with quiet certainty. Perhaps it was the way his hands never hesitated to act, never shook under pressure. Whatever it was, a thread of trust tightened inside her heart, fragile but real. The silence was broken by a sudden, sharp alarm. Sensors detected movement. Another patrol fleet, larger and faster than the last. Lyra's body tensed, pain flaring with adrenaline. "They're here," she whispered, fear clawing at her throat. Elias did not panic. "I know," he said. "We'll have to move fast. Hold on tight." Lyra gripped the edge of her seat, bracing for impact as he maneuvered the shuttle through a narrow corridor of space debris. Patrol ships flared their lights, scanning desperately for their target. Each near miss, each jolt sent sharp pain through Lyra's wounds, but she stayed silent, trusting Elias's skill. A sudden jolt threw her against the side of the cabin. Pain exploded through her ribs, her breath catching in her throat. She gasped, but Elias reached for her instantly. "Are you okay?" he asked, concern clear in his voice. "I'm fine," she forced out, her pride resisting weakness. "Don't lie to me," he said firmly. "We survived together, Lyra, that's how it works." She looked at him, her chest tightening. His words, so simple, carried a weight she had never expected. She had always fought alone, relied only on herself. But now she realized that survival was more than strength, it was trust. And trusting him felt like the only way she could live. The patrol fleet closed in faster. Elias twisted the shuttle sharply, dodging energy pulses and flares. Lyra gritted her teeth against the pain, holding on, feeling the burn in her side and the tremor in her arms. She wanted to scream, to run, to escape the danger alone, but she didn't. She leaned on him mentally and physically, giving herself permission to trust. "Almost there," Elias said, determination ringing in his voice. "Just a little further, Lyra, we can make it." The shuttle burst through a narrow field of broken satellites, the fleet struggling to keep up. The hum of engines and the thrum of adrenaline filled the cabin. Lyra closed her eyes, letting herself feel Elias's calm presence. Pain flared, fear surged, but beneath it all, a small, steady flame of trust burned brightly. Finally, the patrol fleet fell behind, their lights disappearing into the distance. The shuttle glided into a safer trajectory, quiet once again. Lyra exhaled shakily, her body trembling from exhaustion, her chest heavy with relief and disbelief. Elias glanced at her, a faint, tired smile on his face. "We made it," he said softly. "You stayed with me." Lyra's lips curved slightly. "No," she said quietly. "We stayed together." For the first time in what felt like an eternity, she allowed herself to relax. Her body ached, her side burned, and her fear had not vanished, but the weight in her heart had lightened. She had faced the unimaginable, and yet here she was, alive, not alone. As the stars stretched endlessly outside the shuttle's viewport, Lyra realized something profound. Trust was not weakness. Trust was courage. And hope. Real hope. was born from the willingness to rely on another, to let someone share the burden of survival. She looked at Elias, eyes filled with gratitude and something else she had not named yet. Strength, courage, trust, they had guided her this far. And perhaps together, they could face whatever came next. For the first time in her life, Lyra did not feel alone in the universe. The shuttle drifted into the quiet of deep space, the patrol fleets far behind them. Stars stretched endlessly, cold and distant, but inside the cabin warmth lingered. Lyra leaned back, her body battered, her side still throbbing, yet her mind was lighter than it had been in weeks. She glanced at Elias, who sat beside her, adjusting the navigation with calm precision. The man had become more than an ally. He was a beacon, a reminder that not all humans were cruel, not all hands that reached out were meant to harm. "You did well," Elias said softly, finally looking at her. His eyes, gentle and unwavering, met hers. "You stayed strong when it mattered. You trusted me." Lyra swallowed hard, feeling the weight of his words settle in her chest. I wasn't sure I could," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "I've been hunted, betrayed, left alone so many times. I didn't think anyone could really care." Elias shook his head, his expression steady but kind. "Caring doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. Or in your case, more alive than you realize. Trust isn't a mistake, it's a choice. And you chose it, Lyra. You chose to survive together." Her chest tightened. Together. That single word carried so much meaning. She had survived battles, pain, fear, and solitude, but nothing had been as profound as this. Letting someone in, letting someone share her burdens. The thought was foreign and exhilarating all at once. Lyra's violet eyes drifted to the stars outside. Memories flashed unbidden. The burning corridors of the space station, the sharp sting of blaster fire, the relentless patrol drones, and the endless nights of pain. And through all of it, a single constant, Elias, calm, patient, unwavering. He had not faltered when she had flinched, not judged when she had doubted, not abandoned her when she had been weakest. I never thought I'd trust a human like this," she said quietly. "I never thought anyone would care enough to stay." Elias reached out, his hand brushing hers. "I stayed," he said simply, "because I believe everyone deserves a chance, and because I believe in you." Lyra felt a warmth bloom in her chest, fragile and beautiful. Tears pricked her eyes. Not from pain, not from fear, but from relief, hope, and something she hadn't felt in a long time. Connection. She had fought for survival countless times, but now she realized survival was not only about strength. It was about trust, courage, and the willingness to let someone share the fight. The shuttle passed a small, uninhabited planet, glowing faintly in the distance. Elias adjusted their course, guiding them toward a safe haven, a place to rest, heal, and recover. Lyra watched the planet grow larger in the viewport, feeling a sense of anticipation, of possibility. "I never thought I'd see safety again," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I never thought I'd feel peace." Elias gave her a small smile. "It's here, and you helped me get here too. You didn't just survive, you fought, you trusted, you endured. And that makes all the difference." Lyra allowed herself to lean back fully, exhaustion and relief washing over her. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting herself feel the weight of it all. The pain, the fear, the trust, and the hope. She had been broken, hunted, and alone. But now, in the quiet hum of the shuttle and the gentle presence of Elias beside her, she understood something vital. Survival was not just about escaping danger. It was about finding someone to rely on. Someone to share the journey, someone to remind you that even in the darkest corners of the universe, light could exist. Minutes passed, and the planet grew nearer. Lyra opened her eyes, watching the gentle glow of its atmosphere. A small smile tugged at her lips. She was not healed completely, not yet. Pain lingered, wounds remained, and fear would never vanish entirely. But something stronger had taken root. Something permanent, trust, hope. Connection. Lyra turned to Elias, her eyes shining with unspoken gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered, "for staying, for trusting me, for everything." Elias reached over, squeezing her hand gently. "We stay," he said quietly with certainty. "Together. Always." For the first time in her life, Lyra believed it. The universe was vast, dangerous, and unpredictable, but she no longer faced it alone, and that was enough. More than enough. As the shuttle descended toward the planet, Lyra felt the pain in her body. Yes, but it was no longer the only thing she felt. There was warmth, there was trust, there was hope, and as the stars stretched endlessly outside, she allowed herself to believe in the impossible. That in the darkest moments, the last place she expected to find safety, understanding, and care was human. And in that truth she found the courage to truly live.